Welcome back to another episode of the Immersions program. Brad here. I'm pretty excited to talk about today's topic. When I was originally thinking about doing the Jetsetter lifestyle, how to travel the world and popping champagne and going crazy, I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. I saw it up on the schedule. I was like, whoa, this is going to be interesting because it's so internalized for me about all the things I've learned through all the years of living out of a suitcase. And then as I started getting into it, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, all these things started popping up of what I learned along the way. So I thought probably the easiest way for me to go through this and how to kind of structure it out is basically talk about the story of how I started traveling and what I learned along the way in each kind of stage, because it ends up stacking on to cover all the things about how to be productive when you're on the road, how to stay fit, eat healthy, as well as finding gym, and then, how to be the minimalist lifestyle. And I actually kind of like this a lot. I remember in Eben Pagan's product, Self-Made Wealth, he talks about at the end of every year or 2 years, you should just get rid of 10% of everything you own. Like, get rid of 10% of everything that you own, basically. Because there's probably 10%, like if you look at in your closet, old electronics that you're not using, and the less shit you have in your life, actual shit, it actually frees up your mind. You just feel more at ease. So it's kind of nice as I only had what I was able to carry in my suitcase. I sold everything else off when I was traveling around, didn't even have a rent or mortgage anywhere. And it was kind of freeing to know that I could just pick everything up on a dime and go and do something else. So it's a fun lifestyle. It's cool. And also, when I think of the whole jet setter culture, you think of, like I said, popping the champagne, eating strawberries, and going to 5-star restaurants and staying at 5-star hotels. And, there's a little bit of that dispersed in there. We'll talk about that a bit. But actually, the goal is to do this as smartly as possible. Cheap makes it sound like whatever. There are very cheap ways to kind of travel around. I've heard of guys doing it $2,500, $3,500 a month to be in a different city every week or two, do a full Euro tour. I think for me, the sweet spot is around $6,000. If you can do about $6,000 a month, you're going to be covering a lot of good, staying at nicer places instead of the 12-bedroom dorm room hostel situation. And instead of eating the ketchup or the bread with ketchup in the hostel, you're actually having a nice steak here and there and getting some good protein and lean protein and not eating McDonald's every day. So that's kind of the price range I'm in. But again, if you're an idiot, you can spend $20,000 a month and still be broke and not doing things right because it's so easy. The money pits of expensive lodging and the money pits of, eating like bottle service and all that shit. So we're going to cut all that stuff off and talk about how to do this in a very minimal, disciplined way and save as much money as possible. So when I got into this, I'm thinking, I had done a Euro tour once in college or something, and it was super cheap with my girlfriend. It was super boring because I was with my girlfriend. I didn't really learn much from that trip. So then all of a sudden, RSD's like, hey, you're going to Europe for 4 months and pack up, let's do this. So I was thinking, I didn't know what to bring. I didn't know what to wear or what was going on. So I assumed that the best way to do this would be carry-on luggage and a backpack, which in America is great. I don't even need to check a bag then. You don't have to worry about it. It's free. And so I did that for 4 months. So for 4 months straight, just the backpack, carry-on luggage, and I survived. I lived it. It was totally fine. But you learn a couple things along the way. First thing I learned is I didn't know which underwear was clean and which one was dirty. So you fold them in, out, put them inside, outside. Actually, that's kind of a good idea, whatever I just thought about right there. But what's cooler is the Eagle Creek gear. So I wanted to show a couple cool things. So I like the Eagle Creek. This is the 2 cube or the double cube, because what's awesome about it is on one side, you put the clean underwear and socks. I have 2 of them, one for underwear and one for socks. And then when you're done with them, boom, you put them on the dirty side, which is super nice. Those pack away, you can pull them out and it's almost like creating drawers. Like if you're in the hotel, you have your drawers instead of putting shit all over the place, and it's just not a mass of bullshit in your suitcase. So those are really awesome. The other Eagle Creek thing that I have, which is a little less necessary, is I use these ones for my shirts. Or it's the same sort of thing. You kind of put them in there and slide them in so you can fold up your shirts and keep those, and then you have this kind of nice little packing system. If you want to see a video, I'll put the link below where I actually show me packing my luggage. It was a few years back where I was using some of the same equipment. So I like that a lot. That was a good start. The next thing I noticed too was I always had a second pair of jeans. And I was thinking, I'll wear the jeans that I'm wearing right now, and then the second pair, you never know, you're going to spill, something happens. And never once did I wear those jeans in about 2 years. So all of a sudden I decided, okay, if I haven't used these things for 2 years, whatever. When the time comes, I'll just have to buy another pair, or I'll wear shorts as I wash my jeans if I have to wash them. So I just got rid of the second pair. So I only travel with one pair. The pair I'm wearing is the only pair of pants that I wear, the jeans. So you got that. And then what happened is I had this carry-on suitcase, and what happens is in Europe, you can only have one carry-on no matter what it is. So it's going to be the bag that you have your computer, the camera that I have, and all my electronic gear. And no matter what, you're going to have to check the other bag. So I was thinking, well, if I have a carry-on, or if I have to check this carry-on, why wouldn't I just get a bigger bag? So I decided to get a larger bag. And again, in that video, I talk about the Briggs & Riley is my favorite sort of luggage. And the reason why I like the Briggs & Riley is because it has a lifetime guarantee. So you can get a shitty bag for like 120 bucks, and then after 2 years, it breaks, and then you get another one 2 years later, it breaks, another one, or you can spend $300 or $400 and you have it for life, hopefully. And mine look almost like brand new 4 years later of using them, living out of them for a couple of years. So I do really like them a lot. And so I got a larger one, and other couple luxuries that I gained. One is I noticed, I don't know if it's just me getting older or being in nightclubs and smelly, gross nightclubs, is I have my 2 or 3 dress shirts. I got the Excalibur, serrated bayonet, and the katana. And I'm traveling around the world with those. And if you wear them a couple times, you're not going to clean them every time. They start smelling a little bit. So as gross as that is, what do? What do they call it? The Italian shower or something? Get some cologne. So I didn't even care what kind of cologne. I think I had Varvatos cologne or something. And I got that purely just so my shirts don't smell. But if I was going carry-on style, I couldn't have the liquids because of the rules of the liquids they have there. So I added that. And the other thing that I noticed as I traveled more, and even when you're in shit hostels, dirty bathrooms, it's just gross, and your clothes are dirty, and you just want to get clean. You're just on the road, and you're like, I just want to clean up. For me, having the nice loofah sponge and the bath soap and everything like that, and having nice shampoo instead of those shitty little $3 ones that you're kind of using every time and just getting ready, like having my actual shampoo that I use, my soap, that's just like the one luxury when you're on the airplane for 16 hours and you get off the airplane, you're like, oh, this is it's nice to feel freshened up. And now that I have the bigger luggage, I can do that too. What happened next? I think that's the main stuff for the packing system. What happened next after that was I finally decided that a couple of years went by and I couldn't use the excuse of me traveling being an excuse not to go to the gym. And I talked about this in the gym video where part of it was like I was thinking, I was putting it off and saying, you know what, I'll go to the gym once I'm able to, once I'm done traveling so much. And then I realized that I would never not be traveling. So I'm just going to have to figure something out here. And for me, I noticed it was also an inner game issue I had with trying new things and being afraid of being in some place like Estonia and not knowing where the men and women's locker room is, the quintessential story I always tell. But also what it was is like, I just don't know how to do this. Like how do you go about going to the gym and not even having the clothes, the proper attire? So I've noticed actually lately, I started traveling with running shoes. But for me, I don't do cardio. So I have the Chuck Taylors, which pack really nice because they're really small. Just whatever. Hopefully you know what a Chuck Taylor is. All right. So with that, and I actually use those more for doing my squats and deadlifts and stuff because they have the nice flat-footedness instead of like running shoes aren't actually the best for some of those powerlifting. So now I actually a lot of times don't even travel with my running shoes anymore because I don't use them. Having the shorts, having a couple workout shirts is nice. And then the other big thing with having the larger luggage is I'm able to put protein powder in there. And as I was saying before, doing this on a budget and doing this healthy is one way, you can eat a lot of steak, you can get some nice hamburgers, take the buns off, stuff like that. And that's gonna be a big step. But definitely for a meal replacement, to me, to get my protein in, that protein powder actually saves me a lot of money from doing those extra meals I gotta do every day. And it does take up a lot of space, so you need the larger luggage so you can pack the protein powder in there. But that's been a really nice luxury addition, the luxury of having protein powder traveling with me too. And that, other than that, I've showed this, I think, in the diet video before. I do travel with my HIB pill box. And this is actually scaling down compared to, at one point, I think Tyler says he does like about 40 pills a day. For me, I'm usually only doing about 2 or 3. Mostly just doing the fish oil, and then the multivitamin. And then every so often packing on some vitamin D if I'm in vampire mode where I'm not going out to the club at all. So that's most of the diet stuff. I think, like I said, you can get creative there. If I'm traveling around the US, how do you creative do that? Whole Foods is awesome. And actually, if your frame control is good enough and you're assertive enough, you can actually go to Whole Foods and get, let's say, like a grass-fed steak or something, which is, I don't know, 12 to 15 bucks, maybe 20 bucks. And then you can actually be like, hey, grill it up for me. I'd like that grilled medium rare. And they kind of look at you like, oh, what? You want me to grill this? Like, oh yeah, the one I go to in LA, they cook it up. It's not a big deal. Is that all right, And doing it like, assuming that it's going to happen, just like everything else, gaming them like a girl, gaming them like the bouncer. And you can get them to cook this up, so then you have this awesome grass-fed steak, which at a restaurant would probably be like 60 bucks. And you're getting it for 20 bucks at Whole Foods. So that's a nice little sneaky tactic. The other one is, you obviously have the salad bar there. You can eat there and go that route. In America, Chipotle is awesome. You can get the salad at Chipotle or Subway to a lesser extent. I don't think that food is organic whatsoever, but at least you can eat somewhat paleo and somewhat healthy on the road there. When I'm in Europe, what do I do in Europe? Mostly a lot of like shawarma salad style. Getting that, and then, even doing McDonald's. Worst case scenario, McDonald's, take the buns off and you just got a bunch of gross, half real, like beef patties or whatever it is. But having the kind of discipline to be like, you know what, I'm going to stick to this. Because what happens is, especially if you're living the kind of travel lifestyle too much, it's like life is a vacation. You're always on vacation. So you just got to learn to deal with what happens, roll with the punches there. So that, and then like I said, going to the gym, I've noticed in places like Scandinavia, Manhattan, Miami, LA, the bigger major market cities, it is going to be like $30 to go to the gym. So you really can't do, 3 or 4 times a week unless you're going to spend a lot of money, or you're there long enough that you can get a whole month membership or something like that. So it's an issue that you got to deal with. I changed my workout plan. So if I'm going, I basically go once every 5 days, and it's going to be a full body workout to make sure I can kind of stay and maintain where I'm at. It's also good that I've learned more recently by even doing some cardio, like 15 minutes of cardio on the days that you can't work out. It maintains the blood flow and oxygenates the muscles, so you can maintain better and then hit it harder, and you can still kind of gain when you're on the road. And then have those periods where you can be like, okay, I'm going to hit it hard. I'm going to go 2-3 times a week. If you have the ability where it's like you find a cheap gym or something like that. And then I was always like, oh, how do I find the gym? You just ask. It's super easy to get on the internet, Google. Can't use that excuse. Or otherwise, if you're at the hostel or at a hotel, like they're going to tell you where you can go to find a gym nearby. And there's always a gym in every city. It's just an excuse that I had and didn't deal with for so long. So that was interesting. The other funny thing is when you live out of a suitcase, you don't, things like sweatpants or moccasin kind of shoes at the end of the night, I don't know, slippers. It's like, no, you don't have these luxuries, or like a robe. All these things I have now, it's so cool to have these things. On the road, nope, cut all that shit out, and you keep it to the bare minimum. Right, what I was talking about before. So that would be, I'd say, the travel thing. I got the workout thing in there. That was going well. And then I noticed after about a year or two of traveling with RSD, I was assuming, they're buying my plane flights. So any miles that I get, goes to the company anyways. So what does it matter if I'm putting my name or frequent flyer status or anything like that? And then at some point I realized that, it actually goes to whoever's name is on the flight, not the person who bought the ticket. So I realized I'd missed out on 100,000 or so miles or something. And I was like, I need to figure this out. So I'd like to give you a very easy kind of breakdown of how the flyer status works, frequent flyer status. So you can be flying. I mean, I get upgraded to first class all the time. I get to go in my sweet line and skip everyone, or I don't get in line. I pass the line to get through security faster. I don't have to take my shoes off or any of that through the TSA pre-check. So if you're in America, TSA pre-check is amazing. You don't have to take anything out of your bag. You don't have to take your shoes off, your belt, your watch. You just walk on through and there's never a line. It's super slick. So definitely get on that if you can in America. The other things that work with the frequent flyer program, if you want a wealth of knowledge here, what I looked up, it's called flyertalk.com, chatchat.com. And that's where I found what luggage to get, the credit cards I use to get the miles and everything, and to pick out like what sort of frequent flyer program I want to go with. So what you have is, again, this is going to be the easy breakdown, nice and quick, 2-3 minute breakdown here. You have different alliances. So what the alliances are is you have each company, let's say you have United Airlines, Swiss Airlines, Lufthansa, like they're all in the Star Alliance. They have their own alliance basically. So as long as you're flying within one of those companies, you can use your United frequent flyer status with Lufthansa and still get credit, like mileage credit, stuff like that, for elite qualifying miles. So you can actually get your status where you get the the kind of first class upgrades and all that stuff on different airlines. So then what you have to do is think of like, where's your home base? And then kind of think about which are most of the flights you're going to be flying on, what company you can choose, and then what alliance do you want to go with. So for me here in Chicago, I'm flying out of O'Hare all the time, and it's a huge hub for United. So that was a pretty easy choice to go with United. And then, like I said, I love the Star Alliance because you have Swissair, Lufthansa, SAS in Scandinavia. I don't know, there's like 10 or 15 other companies that I'll go with that. So as long as I fly on Jordanian Airlines, which is still in the Star Alliance, I actually get the mileage for United, and I also get to qualify, use those miles, even though it's a long trip, for my elite status to get upgraded. Hopefully that makes sense. The other distinction that gets really confusing is you have elite qualifying miles and redeemable miles. Elite qualifying miles are the ones that gives you the elite status. And these ones you usually can't get through things like credit cards, stuff like that, because they're trying to get actual frequent flyers there. So you need to play the game of like, okay, how am I going to get my elite status? If it worked out, so I can get more other miles quicker and I can get all the other perks. The other side is redeemable miles, and that's what you use to get your flights, like free flights through miles. It's the redeemable miles. So that's important. Like you can get a credit card to help you out with that, and looking at everything else that factors into that too. So I want to say, even before I get any further with this, because I could see guys thinking like, okay, he's talking about this. I don't fly enough. And like probably 95% of the people out there, including myself, what do? They just go on Priceline.com or Kayak.com and find the cheapest flight. Whatever the cheapest flight is, that's just what they choose. And yes, there is some credence to that. It makes sense that, hey, just go with the cheapest flight. But I've noticed time and time again from doing this for about half a decade now, is that picking the flight on your airline is usually between $30 and $50, even $100 more at most to do that flight. If you have a $400 or $500 flight, it's $100. Let's say you do that 4 or 5 times a year. That's like $400 or $500 that you spent getting on your airline. But because you chose to do that, you're probably going to get at least one free flight out of it. And that one free flight right there is $350 to $500. So it almost pays for itself in the long run because you get that free flight because you're getting all this mileage status. But along with that, you also get the perks of probably free luggage. You know, that's probably one of the first things you get. $20, $30 each time right there. That's another couple $100 if you're flying all the time. So it kind of pays for itself that way too. If you also look at, all the other perks then, the skipping the lines and getting like 1 or 2 maybe free access to the lounge and all that sort of like better, you get priority seating, you get your luggage out first, you get extra leg room for free. All these things add up to where it's negligible because you get the free flight and some of these other free perks, and then you get all the other bonuses too. So I really think it's worth doing the research and finding a frequent flyer program, getting your little number and making sure to remember that, and picking flights that at least fit in your alliance. Like I said, you might not, if I'm here in America, I want to do United, but US Airways also fits in too. So cool. I'll just kind of go over and use that, So I don't want you thinking, you're listening, it's like, I don't care, I just do the cheapest flight. I actually think that's pretty stupid to do that. And if you're flying more than 3-4 times a year, you should have that, or at least have it with every airline, and you can be accumulating miles on a couple different airlines, and then hopefully use that down the road in a year or two to kind of use that to get a free flight here and there. So again, redeemable miles is the elite qualifying miles is the one to give you that elite status, and usually need about 25,000 miles to hit elite qualifying status. And then you have the redeemable miles, which is usually 25 to 50 grand for a flight, 50K miles, whatever. More than that for some international ones. And those are a lot easier to actually build up. And then that's also what is important, is looking into the credit cards. So especially in America, I'll just do this quick because I know everyone outside of America, it's kind of got different weird rules and regulations there. But you can get a credit card, you sign up, it's a free card, and you get 25, you basically get a free flight just for signing up. And then if you use that, you get 2 to 3 miles for every dollar spent. So you can just be accruing and getting miles like no other. And that's something for me, especially with me doing some internet advertising, stuff like that. I make sure to use that credit card for all my online advertising because it's just like, it's just money in the bank. Like that, money goes in, money goes out, but every time I'm spending $1, I'm getting 2 or 3 miles off of it. And it's awesome. I'm just getting miles up the ass. And it's like, I get to do all these things for free. So that was the big lesson that I learned, like I said, about 1 or 2 years in. I was thinking like, let me get this elite status and let me do this. And that definitely increased the quality of my Jetsetter status, we'll say, because I'm getting in there and I'm first class, getting upgraded every so often. You get your little champagne to start. You feel very classy. feels very good starting off like that. So that was that side of it. We talked about the gym. Probably the biggest kind of end thing that happened after all that is when the first couple of years I was going out 6 nights a week, going out, and game was just everything. Game was my life, and that's all I cared about. And then I realized when people were like, "Oh, how was Munich compared to Cologne, Germany, or something?" I'd be like, "I don't know. They all look the same to me. Like it's just another European city center, and they had an old town." And I realized I was not very cultured whatsoever. So I made an effort to be like, okay, I'm gonna check out the city. And yeah, if you're watching the immersions videos here, you found out about me probably because of the pickup stuff and the dating stuff. So you're like, yes, I want that. I want to go out and do my pickup pilgrimage and just go out every night, but make the effort to see the cultural things. At least I always feel like I know a city. It takes about 4 or 5 days. And I always say I need one authentic drink, whatever the drink or beer is, one authentic meal, one authentic tour, like a walking tour to see the history, and then one authentic girl. So if you get all 4 of those, then you usually have a really good grasp of what the city's like, whatever. It's worked out well for me. It's been fun adventures doing that. And make that effort though, like I said, because you get in this pattern of going out, and then you don't even really see much more than another nightclub and another nightclub, and then you're quick running to get some food or something like that, and you just don't experience it. And so much of the self-actualization aspect of traveling is learning about other cultures, so you can look at your own and see the upbringing you had and compare it to them, and then you learn more about yourself, of who you are, because you see the differences that you have compared to someone else. So I think that's super important to kind of be out and doing that. And then for me, also it's like I'm traveling, I'm on the road, and as I matured a bit more, I noticed that I kind of want to do more than just go out. I want to kind of have my business in a situation where I can enjoy nicer things, because I went from hostels, and that was cool for about a year or two, and then I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to stay at a nicer place a little bit, get a nicer hostel, which basically are like motels in Europe, like if you can get a 2-star motel style status, or the private rooms at hostels if you're traveling with friends is really nicer than like the 5-star hotel, or compared to, you have the super nice shit, but again, you're going to spend $500 a night, but for like 150, and splitting that with a friend, you can get a really nice spot. But that's different than spending $12 a night for the 14-bed hostel. So I knew that I had to become more productive and get my work mode on, basically, right, while I'm on the road. And I've talked about productivity, I've talked about creating routines, and you have to do the same thing when you're on the road too. The big one is that day of productivity that I talk about, where you just flesh everything out. Today, here it's Sunday for me, that's my day, where I'm going to work for probably just 10 hours. It doesn't even, not even 10 hours, but 4 to 6 hours straight of just, all I'm doing is working on my schedule. Look at what am I going to do Monday? What am I going to do Tuesday? What am I going to do Wednesday? Because especially, and then when you're like, okay, on Friday I have to fly out to Paris or something like that. So I'm not going to get any work done that way. I need to make sure to get what I need done Thursday. The reason why I'm doing this video today is because on Tuesday I'm going to LA. So I got to prepare for that, for the video that comes out on Thursday and everything. So I make 1 day a week for that. And then throughout the week, you're going out, you're traveling, you're seeing the sights, you're having fun, you're partying. So you just have those things in place where you can just really quickly hammer them all out. But you need that day, because otherwise you get it feels like your legs get cut off, and you're kind of always just playing catch up. You're in reactive mode. That's really what it is. You're reacting to whatever happens, putting out fires, checking your email, instead of proactively having that plan of how I'm going to deal with this throughout the week. So that was the thing that I stacked on at the end, is the work side of things. And also definitely like a psychological thing that I had to push through was not feeling guilty if I'm on the road somewhere, not going out, not experiencing things, and going to work. And I've had some of the coolest cities I've been in ended up being my most inspirational times productively. And I felt a little guilty, but also I knew it was the right choice. So I remember this happened in South Africa. And I'm like, you know what, I'm in South Africa. I'm here for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I met this awesome guy, Glenn from Viper Chill, who had this amazing blog. He still has it up. And I was like, oh my God, like he inspired me in seeing what he was doing with the success he was having. And I didn't know anything. And that's actually how the Brad Branson blog came out, and like how it really developed was through that trip in South Africa. And so then I was thinking I was going to do swimming with the sharks and this bungee jumping thing and do a safari. And I'm there for like 3 weeks. And 2 of those 3 weeks, I'm just sitting there on my laptop trying to figure out HTML to get my blog up, because I'm just super stoked and super excited about it. And like I said, I felt a little guilty, but I was like, you know what? this is going to make me have to come back here. I'm going to have to come back here again. And also, it's going to make me like, I'm not guilty about this because I'm going to ride this wave of enthusiasm. And the success I'm going to have from this productive work is going to allow me to do more trips like this in the future. So I'm willing to deal with the short-term pain for the long-term excitement and happiness. So that's something when you're traveling, if you're traveling long-term and you're trying to live the virtual lifestyle where you're working abroad and able to do that, you need to not feel guilty of like, okay, there's all this amazing things going on outside there in the world, right outside of my room here. I hear, maybe I even hear a party and it's like, I want to do that. I got to work today so I can sustain myself to do this for the next week. And like I said, don't feel guilty about it whatsoever. So that was probably the last thing for me. So stacking on having, the travel lifestyle and being able to go out, but then making sure that, my fitness kind of stayed in check and kind of creating routines for that. And then also, getting my, I'd say finances, but just getting like the business side of things in line with that too, where all of a sudden everything's spinning really nicely. I think a couple little quick fire tactics to kind of end things out here. One big one, guys are like, okay, where do I find places to go? Where do I find things like that? If you're at a hostel, that's great. They can usually help you out finding super cheap things. And sometimes I'll actually just go to a hostel and ask them like, hey, where's the cheapest grocery store? And they'll know like all the really cheap shit. If you're looking for like something really nice, go to the nicest hotel and go to their concierge. Don't show up with all your luggage and look like you're like some poor hostel guy. But if you just roll up there and you roll up to the concierge like, hey, I'm looking for a nice meal and a nice place to go out. I think they really know the really posh, nice clubs and stuff like that. Whereas if you're staying at a hostel and you say, hey, where should I go out tonight? They're going to be like, well, this place has dollar beers. And this place over here, every Thursday, you can get shots for $0.25. I'm like, I want to know where the hot local girls are. That's what I'm looking for, And a lot of times, assuming most people that go to a hostel, they're not going to be able to afford going to like the posh nightclub in Paris or something like that, So the concierge is usually a lot better for restaurants, stuff like that. And kind of like sightseeing and everything. Again, they're not going to ask and say, hey, are you staying here? Like that would be so rude if they asked that to someone that actually was staying there. So they just are automatically going to assume it. Also, sneaky little trick. If you really have to use the bathroom and all there is gross shit around, going to that 5-star restaurant and or 5-star hotel, kind of sneaking through the lobby, they're going to have really nice bathrooms so you can kind of clean up, freshen up, whatever you need to do in there. That's a nice little sneaky tactic too. I did actually want to say one last thing about for finances and currency exchange and all that. That was something that always kind of confused me. And whenever I hear somebody ask me like, oh, I'm going to Europe for my first time, should I take thousands of dollars with me or how should I do it? A couple rules that I have is I always travel with 2 debit cards because a lot of machines in Europe still kind of eat the credit card and you're like, and I had one time in Paris where it just stole the card or it got in the machine and I'm totally screwed and I had to like have my mom ship me another card. So I always keep one card in like a suitcase separate from everything else. So they're not in the same place. That's obvious. If you have them both in your wallet and you lose your wallet, you're kind of fucked there, right? I always have a second form of ID that I keep in that spot, and I have 2 credit cards for the same reason too. I like the Amex card. I have the Amex Platinum card, which is really good because it has no transaction fees if you're in a foreign country. Although a lot of places don't accept Amex cards or American Express, so that is kind of lame too. The other thing for getting money out is, from what I've been told multiple times, is the ATM machines is you're going to have the best currency exchange rate. So you want to kind of spend all the money you have when you're in the country. And then, instead of having dollars and transferring into euros or whatever you're kind of changing things into there, it's actually best to go to the ATM and pull out a good chunk of money because, it's going to be $5 to $10 fees after you have your own bank fees and whatever ATM fees they have at that thing. So I'll usually pull, I don't know, me personally, I feel comfortable with a couple $100, either put somewhere safe or have it on me, something like that. And that way, I'm working the currency exchange as best as possible. And that's going to be your best bet for that. I think those are the main things. Hopefully this helps you out with all the kind of fun, living the jet-setting lifestyle. You can live the life looking cool, but also not spend a shitload of money. It doesn't cost as much as what you'd think it is. And I think a lot of times that's what scares people off. There's a couple trips that I was planning in the future here, just pure leisure trips. And I was thinking, oh, you know what? It might just be too expensive. I don't think I could do it. Like, in that you have that success barrier, kind of like a limiting belief holding you back because you think of how much it's going to cost because it's so rare. Because you're like, oh, I could never do that. I could really never live that sort of lifestyle where I'm traveling around. It's like I don't have any friends that have done that. But actually, if you break it down, like I said, it's very reasonable. It's a very fun way. It's very reasonable to not have it be this super crazy expensive thing, and it's something that's completely going to change who you are. Like if I think about I feel so much more wise, like wise beyond my years, because I look at the map back here and seeing all those different places I've traveled to and how much I've learned about myself through throwing myself in the fire and having crazy things happen, and also through learning through meeting other people and shining that mirror back on myself and seeing who I am compared to them. So hopefully this helps you out, and I hope you can get out there and have a lot of fun. And as always, enjoy. I'll see you next week.